Okay, I just challenge you.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, perfect. So basically, what I want you to do is to tell me everything which comes to your mind. I don't care how stupid you think it is, maybe, or if you think it is unnecessary. It's nice if you say whatever, and then I'll try to correct the things that you said. Yeah, the idea is simple, and that's basically what it is. So I'll be listening to you from now on, and I wish you can speak as much as you can, so that I have a lot of corrections to make or a lot of comments to make, and that's basically what it is, right? Of course, I'm not a native English speaker, so you have to bear with me here. Sometimes I'll make a little mistake or two while speaking, but I hope it is not too much of a problem and that you can bear with it, right?
That's good.
So perfect. I'm going to be listening to you from now, and I'll be taking notes. So tell me what you think.
All right. Um, I guess I'll just play Development Nights. Not really too much special going on in the opening. Yeah, I'll just develop my other pieces. There's no point in just moving my pawn, just get out my knights and stuff now. Um, I'll just develop out my bishop to g4 because it's kind of the most natural spot for it. It's delaying my castle, but it's alright. Develop the pawn, open up the bishop so that I can castle. I'm gonna just put the bishop here so that it pins the knight. I'll castle as well. It's safe to do. I'm gonna trade the bishop with the knight so that I can put the knight on e4, I guess. That makes sense. I don't really want to trade off that knight because it's really nicely placed. And I don't want to take the knight because your bishop would pressure mine, or my knight. But I think I can, I guess if I move e4, I could, or no, e5, sorry, I could open up the center a little bit, but I'd be losing my knight if I tried to trade like that. So I guess I have to play rook first. I'm just gonna move my bishop back. I don't want to lose the diagonal. Mm, I could take the bishop first. If you take the bishop first, he takes with queen, and then I take with knight, and you have doubled pawns. I mean, it's not too bad for me. I guess that's probably the best way to do this. I still like the knight. I don't want to play f6 to like remove the pawn. I kind of just want to play like c5, just develop out more pieces. I'm gonna play c7. I get to attack the pawn. Also defend my pawn as well. I kind of like. No, never mind. I was gonna say b3, but or no c3, but that's defended. Would have been nice. It's not trapped. I can just put it on. I guess here's the only spot. Yeah. Now it's trapped though. That's unfortunate. But I'm gonna trade there, and then it's also attacking the rook. So if he took with pawn, I just take the rook. So it's sort of not trapped, but it is. I guess the only way to get out of this would be to somehow pressure a piece. But I can't really do that. I guess the best move would just be to take a pawn with it. Still kind of unfortunate, but we'll lay down a piece. Just defending that center pawn with the rook because the rook's inactive over there. That's unfortunate. And I probably should have seen that. I don't want to trade away my queen if I'm down material. That doesn't seem like the move. So I guess the only spot I can move it is here to get it away. I'll lose that diagonal though, so that's kind of unfortunate. Nothing's being, I guess, threatened. So I could play the rook there, or to f8, and regain the square, or the diagonal that I had before on my queen, I guess. Or I could play pawn e5, force the queen. If I force the queen somewhere else, then I'm forced to trade it. I don't really like that as much. I want to keep my queen. No, did I just mate myself? Yeah, I didn't think too much on that one. Fuck, I'm retarded.
No worries. Let's take a look at this. Can you see the board?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, perfect. So here's the thing. I've noticed that in general terms, you're thinking kind of too much about your moves, but you're not thinking a lot about the moves of your opponent, you know? That's something that you should be considering, because you have to remember that, you know, chess is a game that you play with other guy, and the other guy has a lot of moves. And you should try to see the moves of the other guy too, so that you can actually plan on how to avoid the best moves of the other guy, making your own best moves. Hope that makes sense, right? And here's the thing: d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, e3, knight c6. You know, generally you'll say that you want your pieces out and that you want to develop your knights before your bishops, and that's alright. But in this kinds of position, when you're playing black, you do not want to play knight c6 so early, because you avoid c5. You know, you're basically stopping that in the future. You want to have c5 because you want to try to break the center eventually, and you have to try to play for the center. So sometimes chess players will avoid c5, and you know, will avoid knight c6 before playing c5, because then basically you get a position which is really passive, you know. So knight c6, something that you should try to avoid so early. Maybe something like e6 and c5 makes sense. Maybe something like b6 and c5 makes sense. Knight d7, c5 makes sense. g6, bishop g7 makes sense. And those are some alternatives that you have to play this kind of position. Maybe moving your bishop out of the chain of pawns when before playing e6 makes sense also, right? So when you said, well, I'm gonna play knight c6 because I want to do some development, makes sense. But in this position, maybe knight c6 is not the best way to proceed, right? So bishop d3, bishop g4, it's okay. I don't think the bishop g4 is nothing extremely crazy. I think you're completing your development, which is alright. Also, it would be nice if you were thinking, what else are you gonna do beyond bishop g4, right? I see that you're just looking one move ahead of the position, right? That's not enough. You have to try to force yourself to, okay, say something like, well, I'm gonna play bishop g4, maybe then I'm gonna play e6, I'm gonna play bishop d7, maybe bishop d6, and I'm gonna finish my development with castling, right? But you said, well, I'm gonna play bishop d4, it seems like the natural square for the bishop. I think bishop g4 is not good, it's not wrong, but also you have to be thinking ahead, right? It's not just like this is something that we get like a bad habit when we play a lot of blitz. We actually just start to look one move ahead, right? That's why most people will recommend you to play, you know, some longer time controls in chess at the beginning, so that you can improve the way you see the game and you can improve the way you plan your position, right? Basically, what you want to do is to have an ideal position in your mind, right? Something like the utopian position in your mind. And your utopian position here might be something like bishop d4, who knows, e6, bishop d6, castling, and then try to break the center somehow with c5, maybe knight d7 and c5, right? That might be your ideal position. That's what you want to accomplish. And now that you know that your ideal position, your utopian position, one way to look at these ideas is, once that you know where you're going, you try to elaborate a plan and try to concrete it through moves. So here in this position, bishop d4, bishop g4, perfect. Then e6, bishop d6, castling. That's what I want to do. What do I want to do as the white pieces, right? It kind of depends. Here it is not so obvious because I just played bishop d3, and there are many ways in which I can play. I can play c3, I can play b3, I can play knight e2, I can castle. So it is not so clear what I want. But in general terms, you may argue that I would like to castle, I would like to try to fight for the center, maybe with c4, maybe b3 in a Zucker-Turcoli system, and knight e2 makes sense. I'm not gonna play knight c3 because I don't want to obstruct my c4 options, right? But here I'm not paying too much attention to the opening, at least in my side, because I want you to play something like out of your comfort zone, right? I'm just weighing some random moves at the opening because I don't believe that at this level the opening is so important. But in general terms, these are some ideas that you may have to take into account. Hope that makes sense, right? Perfect. So bishop d4, knight b d2. The idea is that I'm just defending my knight. See how I'm playing knight b d2 instead of knight c3. The reason why I'm doing so is because I do not want to stop myself from doing c4 in the future, right? So
yeah,
e6, nice move. You're just preparing yourself to move your bishop. Maybe here I committed a mistake because I was playing fast and I was just taking notes on the things that you were saying. And I played b3, which is not such a good move because then I allowed you to play bishop b4, which might be a little bit annoying. Maybe just castling makes sense, and then a3 and b3, bishop b2 makes even more sense, right? But I played b3, which is probably a little mistake. I'm not losing because of that, but it might be a little mistake. So you played bishop b4, you said, well, I want to create here a pin, and that might be a little bit annoying, and I agree with you, because if I play bishop b2, for example, then you can take, and I take with my queen, for example, bishop b2, you can take with my queen, and you can even try to do this. Doubling up my pawns, but I have some chances of playing rook g1 or something and try to take advantage of this square. But at the moment I didn't want to get into that. So I decided that I just wanted to play castling so that I didn't get double up pawns. So nothing really crazy. Castling a3, forcing you to make a decision. What do you want to do with your bishop? So what were you thinking in this position? Like if I ask you right now.
Yeah, so I wanted to put my knight here, so I thought that taking this knight was the best move so that the square would be open. That's just kind of what I was thinking, because this is it pressures a lot and it has a lot of different reach to it.
Yeah.
So I thought if I just put it here, it would be a good knight to have.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. This is something that you'll see a lot in this kind of positions. The knights are going to e5 or to e4. And the idea is that the knight on e4 or on e5 has a lot of squares and it's really active. So usually when your knight is on e4, a good idea is to play f5, you know? The idea is that you are defending your knight and also you're taking some control of the center. And let's say, for example, something like, I don't know, bishop takes knight e4. Here, something like f5 makes a lot of sense, you know? The ideas are basically you're defending your knight. Also, you're playing something like rook f6 and maybe bringing your rook towards the king side and trying to attack, which is called the trampoline. And that sounds kind of funny, but that's the way it's named, and it might work. You know, f5, rook f6. Basically, you want to kill the other guy with some ideas like this. In this position, I'm not quite sure if that's gonna work like pretty well because there are many pieces around my king, but that's a general idea that you might take into account, right? So we arrived to this position. I played bishop e2. The idea behind it is that I do not want you to take my I do not want to take my bishop on d2. Then when I take with my queen, you can take on f3, and then it's doubling up my pawns, something that I shouldn't be scared of, but I don't know, I didn't want to do that at the point. And here you said, after I played bishop d2, you said, I don't want to trade my knight. And that makes a lot of sense, you know? You do not want to trade your knight because...
It's a really nice active square.
Because it's a really nice... Exactly, because it's a really nice active square. And this bishop is a...
Kind of useless.
Yeah, it's kind of useless. And it's a bad bishop because it's the bishop behind the pawn chain in the center, which is, for the moment at least, not being moved. So this bishop on d2 is not so good, right? It is just it just doesn't have many squares because of these pawns here, and it's basically a big pawn at this point. So it makes sense not to change your knight for my bishop. That's actually something that I like that you said. I don't want to trade my knight because my knight is good, your bishop is bad. I don't want to do that. That made sense. So rook e8. So here rook e8. What were you thinking when you played rook e8?
So when if I play rook e8, I can open up and I can, or no, not that. I can just move this up, because if I took it before, I'd just be losing it and I couldn't recapture. So if I have the rook now, I can try to regain control of the center.
All right, perfect. That was actually a good idea, because you want to break the center, and usually in this kind of position, you're basically breaking with c5. You know. That's why you do not want to have your knight on c6 here. Also, some ideas, usually in this kind of position where your knight is not on c6 but on d7, is that when you play f5, then you play knight f6, and see how these two knights together, like a knight on f6 and one on e4, are really annoying, you know? Yeah. So that's another good idea that you could take, so that you can play that in your next games, and might be something interesting. So bishop e2, rook e8 makes sense because you want to play e5. A more natural way to try to break the center might be c5, but of course rook e8 makes sense. h3, and now see how I am avoiding you, or how I'm avoiding your move, like how I'm predicting that you're gonna play e5, and I do not want you to do that, because then you're gonna liberate your position, you're gonna have a lot of space, and I didn't want you to do that. So I play knight e5. The idea is simple. I'm gonna trade some pieces, and I'm gonna get to an equal endgame, right? You here decided to take on e2. Another way to proceed might be something like bishop g6, but you have to be careful because I can take on c6 and double your pawns also. Which you said, actually, you acknowledged that, and I think that's a really nice way to think about this position. So bishop takes e2. Okay, you're just trading pieces. But here, when you play c5, actually this is really nice because you're taking some space in center. Also, you have to acknowledge, or you have to recognize, that your knight on e5 is kind of trapped, you know? On e4 is kind of trapped, sorry. Because if you look at how many squares does your knight on e4 have, it's just like not many. You see? You just have one square on g5, and that might be kind of dangerous. I play bishop e1 because I wanted to play f3 and be a little bit annoying here, because the only way that you have to get your knight out of the square e4 is g5. I thought maybe you will play something like h6, which is kind of sad, because if I play f3, then you go here, I play h4, and then your knight has to go somewhere like h7. That's kind of sad. I don't like that. Another way to see this position is that when you play c5, even though you're taking control of the center, I'm
trapping my
knight. You're trapping your knight, and you have to be careful with that. Of course, I play bishop e1 because if I play f3 directly, then you just trade my bishop for your knight, which is a bad bishop and might be good for me. But I thought, well, maybe bishop e1 might be more tricky, and it actually was. But here, when you play queen c7, you didn't actually took a second to think about my move bishop e1, which you should, you know. When you see this move, you should think, well, what's on your mind? What are you thinking here? Why are you doing bishop e1? That seems to be an unnatural move, right? So you do not want to overlook these kind of things, because that might suppose some bad fortune for you in the future. So for example here, your knight, something that you have to recognize also is that when your knight is 2 squares away from a bishop, it is dominated, you know? Maybe you know this. Maybe you have seen this before. This is something well known in chess, which is basically that when a knight is 2 squares away from a bishop, it is dominated. Like if your knight is here and my bishop is here, and there are 2 squares, then look, you cannot come to any of these squares, right? Hope that makes sense. So Here, my bishop is actually taking these squares too, is defending all of these squares, and now I'm threatening f3. This is something that you have to be careful with. You should be thinking, what is the other guy thinking? What's in his mind? Why are you going to do that? Why are you going to do such a natural move like bishop e1? What's your idea, right? In this position, that's something that you should be really careful about. So bishop e1 is dominating your knight to a certain extent, and here's something that you should notice, right? When we are playing chess, oftentimes we want our pieces to look really nice on the board, right? We want our pieces to be in a really nice central square, and that's fine, but sometimes when our pieces are in the center and they are doing nothing, then that's not so good. Like if you look at your knight right now, okay, your knight is on e4, it's a really nice square. Will you agree with me about that?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a perfect square to have a knight. But also, what is your knight doing there?
Not much right now.
Not much, right? Like, a better way to think about this knight is, well, my knight is in a really good square, but it's actually doing nothing right now. Maybe I'm in a little bit of danger here, and that's something that you should be considering, and that I think makes a lot of sense, right? So when your knight is here, and it has no squares to go to, and it's dominated, then it's not such a good knight. Like, I was talking about this with one of my students, and I was telling him that I was watching an interview that they did to the guys who made The Matrix, you know? The brothers Wachowski, or the siblings, or the sisters, I don't know how to call them, I don't know enough English. So, the thing is that these guys, they were in the interview and they say something really nice. They said, well, you know, once there were two movies which were launched 1 month ahead of the other one. Like literally they threw a movie today and the next month they threw the other movie. And the two movies were exactly the same thing. The two movies were exactly the same thing. Like literally the plot was the same, the characters were more or less the same, the people acting were doing exactly the same things, and the movie was basically the same thing. And something that was surprising for them was that nobody made a critic on magazines or anything like that about that. Nobody made a critique about the two movies being the same thing, and the only thing that changed in both movies was aesthetics, you know? So what they said is that it is really hard for us as humans to see beyond aesthetics, because aesthetics is the thing that we are exposed to, and it's really hard to see beyond that. It's really hard to see beyond the cartoon and theater or something, and to see what's actually really happening here. So in this position, aesthetically, this knight looks really nice because it's in this square, but when we go to reality, when we go to the way things work, this knight is not that good, right? Because, well, it's nice, but what are you doing with it? In chess, you always want to have a purpose, right? You always want to have a why you're doing something, or why this piece is here, or why your position is doing these things, or why are you doing this, or whatever, right? I hope that makes sense. So queen c7, this is a mistake because tactically you're losing a knight. So just after f3 and h4, your knight is trapped. Now queen takes e4 seems a little bit better, because then you're taking on a1, and that's dangerous, right? But also something that you have to consider is that, well, I have bishop d2, and now it is not so obvious how to move this knight out of the threat. Something that I will encourage you to do in this kind of position is to play something, like to think at least about something like knight h3, because if I take, then there might be some tricks, at least not in this position, but in some positions there might be some tricks with perpetual checks or something like this, right?
Yeah, I thought about that, but then I thought if I go here and then you take, I can't just move here and get, because the pawn is defending that square anyways. So I thought it was just best to just take.
Sure, that's a good thing to think, actually. In this position you may think about knight h3 check, g takes, maybe not queen g5, but queen g3. Of course it doesn't work because I have queen g2, but it's something that you have to acknowledge in this kind of situations. You have to be looking for the tricks also, so that you can win some games strictly. And knight takes f3 is probably the best way to proceed, just taking a couple of pawns for the piece. But I'm not quite sure if that's enough compensation for you in this position, actually. Because you have 8 pawns, I have 6, but my pieces are active. This bishop eventually is probably going to come here and do something like this. So those are some things that you have to take into account. You have 2 pawns for the piece, so it is not so easy yet. But after you play rook d8, even though it looks like a natural move, your pawn on f7 is hanging, and that's something that you do not want, right? So queen takes f7, king h8, queen f4, and yeah, that was more or less a blunder. But the reason why I'm creating these videos is not necessarily to teach you a lot about tactics, because we all know that tactics are important, right? But also to tell you a little bit more about the strategy, which is something that most people around 1400 are struggling with, and that's something important that we might want to improve in these kind of situations, right? So rook f3, rook f8, well, this is a major blunder. You have to be really careful because your 8th rank is actually really weak, and you cannot play just rook f8 because you're losing. But in this position it's hard to find a move to make with the black pieces because you're down a piece for a pawn, and that's not enough compensation. Basically what I want to do, as you said when I played queen f4, you said, well, you want to trade pieces because you have material advantage, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I like that. I like the fact that you were aware of not trading your pieces and trying to keep a little bit more of let's say counterplay, or let's say chances of getting into a more favorable position in the future, right? Also, something that you have to consider is that if you're playing like players around 1400, you can trick them sometimes, and you basically do not want to resign ever, right? Even in the craziest position, you do not want to resign ever. Also, something important to consider is like even when you're playing strong players, you do not want to resign, and that's just a little advice. I was playing the other day against a guy who was 2500, and I was down a piece and I was totally lost, and then we went into time trouble and he made a mistake, and of course I was able to win. But the guy made a mistake, even though you may think that these guys never make a mistake, or they are so good, they're so nice, or whatever. Sometimes we make mistakes. I have lost many games against people when I was totally winning, and that's just another recommendation here. So I like the fact that you didn't resign, because that means that you're actually fighting for the point. And so rook f8, well, this was a mistake, but in general terms, I hope you learn something about the opening, about the strategy, about how you should be playing. Of course, I'm not playing the most precise moves, probably because I'm taking notes and stuff, and also because sometimes I do not see some things. But I hope you like this game, and I hope you learn some things, and that you had a good time here and some fun, learning a little bit about chess. So I hope you like it, and maybe we can try to play some other game later, if you like.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Hey guys, this is Carrero, and I'm here to tell you that I wasn't expecting so many people to answer the post that I did on Reddit. I'm extremely surprised. So I've already played a couple of guys, and they enjoyed the experience. I know that my comments are not going to be 100% precise, and that's evident, and the reason why it's because I am not a computer, but I'm not pretending to be a grandmaster because I am not. But I think that we all can improve, and I do believe that it might be helpful to get rid of some of the misconceptions that we have when we are starting in chess. Other things that I want to add here is that if you find a better line than what I just suggested, then send a message or comment below, do something about it. Share with us your knowledge. That might be perfect. Other thing that I was about to tell you is that in this channel, eventually, I think I'll probably play some bad moves on purpose, so that I can see how to exploit the debilities or the weaknesses that I just created. I do not care about the result of the game, because it's just a game. It's not even graded. It is a game where I want you to actually think and to improve your way of thinking, and not only your way of thinking, but also you're basically contributing to other people who are interested in chess as well. So if you like the video, then comment, subscribe, and give a like, and share it with your friends. And if you want to play, make sure you send me a message on LilChat or even on Reddit with your Skype account, and that might be fun. So I have nothing else to say. Watch the video and I hope you enjoy it.